But in at number 10 is Microwave Man. Punch-proof, bulletproof, and capture-proof. That's him, the Microwave Man. Louis Paget has the honor of being the first actually superpowered villain to ever appear in DC Comics. Louis gained microwave-based abilities through some scientific experimentation, allowing him to absorb microwaves and alter them, which he used to rob banks. His experiments attracted the attention of aliens though, who invited him to see the galaxy with them, and he accepted. Now an old man, they finally brought him back to Earth so he could pass away on his home planet. However, when he discovers the existence of Superman and that his microwave powers have increased thanks to how much more microwaves are used in the present time, he asks the aliens to make him young again so he can experience a fight with Superman, even though he knows that the strain of it will kill him. They agree. And so during the fight, Superman comes up with a way to defeat him, but the aliens tell Superman about how Louis will pass away afterwards, so Superman lets him win. Number 9. Toyman. Toyman is a little less obscure as he is a long-lasting character. He's just so freaky and weird, and I wanted to talk about him, so here we are. Winslow Schott was a very talented toy maker. He was bullied as a kid, and as an adult, a businessman who owned an arms manufacturer tried to convince Winslow to sell his toy designs in order to be turned into weapons, which was absolutely not cool with Winslow. Unfortunately, the passing of his android toy wife, Mary, forced his hand and he had to sell out. He took revenge on the businessman though with an exploding teddy bear, and thus the Toyman was born. He can go from a goofy mad scientist to a psychologically disturbed tragic figure in his stories. The worst part is every time he attempts to salvage his reputation and do something good, something tragic usually drives him further into darkness. Number 8. Manchester Black. Technically, Manchester Black is supposed to be an anti-hero, apparently. But like almost everything he's done feels like a villain kind of thing to me, I don't know. Manchester Black is actually a pretty strong telepath and telekinetic, and he did kind of horrible things with this power. Like on New Earth, he ended up revealing Superman's secret identity to all of the villains and even made Superman think that Black had taken the life of Lois Lane in an attempt to make Superman break his oath and kill Black, which didn't work. On Prime Earth, he discovered Superman's secret identity, made some aliens become the Kent's neighbors in Hamilton County, captured Superboy and nullified his powers for a while, forced him to watch images of Lois and Clark fighting the Elite and suffering, and then he returned his powers and used John against his father, Superman. How have I never heard of this guy before? I don't know. Number 7. Circus of Crime. Fritz Tybalt, then manager and ringmaster of a small Austrian circus, became active in the Axis powers during World War II. He was asked by German intelligence to take his circus to the United States of America to give performances in major cities while actually using his circus members' powers and talents in order to take out government officials. Fritz Tybalt's evil circus of crime consisted of Omir the Snake Charmer, Tommy Thumb, the Trapeze Trio, and Zandow the Strongman. However, Tybalt, who came to be known as the Ringmaster of Death, was captured by Captain America. But fast forward, and the Circus of Crime's new MO was giving a performance to a large audience. Then the ringmaster would use the powerful mind control device in his hat to put the audience into a trance. The circus members then robbed the audience, who would remember nothing about the thefts when the ringmaster released them from the trance, and the performance continued. This criminal circus fought the Hulk, Spider-Man, the Hawkeyes, the Avengers, and others. Number 6. The UFOs. These villains and their cleverly chosen team names. UFOs, like UFOs, because they got their powers in space. Yes, of course. Someone get me out of here, please. Okay, the UFOs here, inspired by the powers gained by the Fantastic Four, went to great lengths trying to reproduce the same accident that gave those heroes their abilities. The attempt succeeded, but they were interrupted by Bruce Banner, who discovered their ground control facility and was able to bring the shuttle down, because he thought it had been exposed to the cosmic radiation by accident. They were none too happy, as they thought they could have been made even stronger if he had not interfered, and they displayed their newfound powers in a frankly pretty awesome fight with the Incredible Hulk. even if they lost. Vapor has the ability to alter her form into any known gas. Vector gained the power of telekinesis from cosmic rays. X-Ray has been permanently transformed into a living energy field with the power to expel forms of heavy radiation capable of hurting even the Hulk. Ironclad has been permanently transformed into organic metal steel. He has superhuman strength, durability, and the ability to decrease or increase his own weight. His fight with the Hulk literally shook the universe, which is super cool. You should probably check him out. Number 5, the Frightful Four. A second group inspired by the Fantastic Four. Yes, the Frightful Four also did not come up with a very clever name. The Wizard, the Sandman, and Paste Pot Pete, who all regularly did battle with the Human Torch and were defeated by him around the same time, realized that they all had unique powers and a mutual disdain for the Fantastic Four. The Wizard suggested that they form a group that would be the evil counterparts to the Fantastic Four. A great idea! But it's just 3 dudes. They need a 4th member to their group, and what do you know, the Wizard had heard of a strange woman hiding out on a remote island on the Mediterranean who had complete control of her hair. Traveling there, the Wizard convinced Madame Medusa to join their ranks. Now this Madame Medusa was actually Medusa of the Inhumans, as some of you may have guessed, but she was kept under the influence of the Wizard using a device that kept her memories forgotten to her. They made their first attack at Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman's engagement party, which is kinda just rude if you ask me. Number 4, Wrecking Crew. When Dirk Garthwaite, otherwise known as Wrecker, held onto his enchanted crowbar, he invited his 3 chums, ex-physicist Dr. Elliot Franklin, ex-Army Master Sergeant Henry Camp, and ex-farmhand Brian Kalusky to come and do the same in the middle of a thunderstorm. When lightning struck the crowbar, all 3 men were empowered, becoming Thunderball, Bulldozer, and Piledriver respectively, and coming together to be the villainous Wrecking Crew. These mystical strongmen were mainly an enemy to Thor, but they originally fought against the Defenders. This group has actually been around for a pretty long time and have battled many a superhero. The Fantastic Four, Avengers, Omega Flight, Spider-Man, the Thunderbolts, and even got into a fight between the Marvel and DC universes.
Number 3, Charlie Chainsaws. He's a real guy. He's about as ridiculous as he sounds, but also about as terrifying as he sounds too. Charlie Chainsaws appears in Wolverine Weapon X, where he's one of Dr. Rotwell's patients in later experiments. Charlie Chainsaws was locked up in the Dunwich Sanatorium because he liked killing people with chainsaws. To make him even more deadly, Rotwell decided to therefore give him chainsaws for hands. This didn't make him a very quiet or tactile killer, but it did make him a very bloody one. Eventually, Wolverine would escape the sanatorium, but so would Dr. Rotwell and his beloved experiment, Charlie Chainsaws. Number 2, Spore. Spore was apparently a super ancient evil that was created by the Deviants way back as a weapon to be used against the Eternals. However, Spore didn't just do harm to Eternals, but kinda to all living things it came in contact with. As such, Spore was condemned by the Celestials and killed, or at least defeated, long ago. Or so they thought. While destroyed, Spore lived on in the soil where he was defeated. Eventually, through this soil, he was able to return through substances that were grown in it, and used for experimentation on people like ROUGHHOUSE. In fact, ROUGHHOUSE ended up infected and had to be saved later on by Wolverine as a result. Wolverine and his mutant friend Bandera ended up fighting against Spore with some help from the people of Tierra Verde and Sister Salvation, who possibly herself was a mutant, although we're a little unclear on that. While defeated, a small piece of Spore would apparently survive, having resurfaced this summer somewhat randomly in an Iron Man comic. Apparently that happened. Number 1, Snow Queen. Snow Queen is someone who I initially thought was going to be revealed as Emma Frost when I first read about her, based on her appearance in issue number 24 of Wolverine from the 1990s. I mean, she kind of looks like Emma Frost, right? Like, I read it and I was like, is that Emma Frost? And then I was like, no, this is totally different character, Snow Queen. And yet, she is not Emma Frost. She is her own character who just happens to share a bit of a resemblance to Emma. Her real name is actually Bridget Leahy, and she has powers that allow her to create kind of like TV static, but in your brain. They're described as being telepathic snow powers. They basically make your mind foggy and make it hard for you to focus if you happen to be within range of her power. She did not last very long, dying in the same issue she first appeared in. So that's the end of Snow Queen. For now.
Number 10. The S-Men. Red Skull, being the dastardly devil he is, made some backup plans in the case of his eventual demise. One such plan was a clone of himself who would come back in the modern era. Okay, side note, why do villains do this, making clones of themselves? The individual villain still kind of passes away, so if they move their consciousness or something, that kind of makes sense, but I don't get why this is a thing. But I'm pretty sure this clone isn't even like that. I'm gonna make myself upset, so let's just continue. Basically, waking up in this new modern world with mutants and all that jazz, this new Red Skull decided that he was going to dig up the body of Professor X and steal some of his brain, granting himself some telepathy, and as an antithesis to the X-Men, he created the S-Men. Yes, very creative. This was a group of individuals that the Red Skull had empowered using crazy mad science and magic. Almost all of them were pretty quickly taken out of existence by Magneto when this Red Skull tried to make a camp to exterminate mutants. Bad move, buddy. Bad move. Number 9. ZODIAC Cartel. Honestly, it's a pretty cool idea for a group. This villainous group of hand-picked business leaders who were all born under different zodiac signs, as their leader Cornelius Van Lunt, or Taurus, was heavily into astrology. Each member, while representing a zodiac sign, also was based in a different American city, and their main goal was world economic and political domination. Its members originally were, other than Cornelius, Scorpio, Jake Fury, Aquarius, Darren Bentley, Aries, Marcus Lassiter, Cancer, Jack Cleveno, Capricorn, Willard Weir, Gemini, Joshua Link, Leo, Daniel Radford, Libra, Gustav Brandt, Pisces, Noah Perricone, Sagittarius, Harlan Vargas, and my representative, Virgo, Elaine McLaughlin. The team was first formed after the dissolution of a previous group called the Great Wheel of Zodiac, which had covert agents from around the globe including Baron von Strucker, Dum Dum Dugan, and even Leonardo da Vinci. Its dissolution also led to the creation of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra, and Leviathan as well, so you could definitely say it was important and somehow still relatively obscure. Number 8. Headmen. Sometimes it takes the smallest of things to bring people together, and while that may sound like an extremely beautiful sentiment, I'm saying it in relation to the villainous team known as the Headmen, who it seems came together because each of their powers revolves around their heads in one way or another, and it's honestly kind of unsettling in my opinion. Bonded together through their heads, these scientists sought out world domination, bringing them into conflict with the Defenders, She-Hulk, and Spider-Man. This quartet consisted of Arthur Nagin, their leader, who had his head transplanted onto the body of a gorilla, Ruby Thursday, who replaced her own head with an organic computer capable of changing shape, Gerald Morgan, aka Shrunken Bones, accidentally shrank his own skeleton, including his skull, so he basically has really baggy skin, and Chandu the Mystic's head has been transplanted by Nagin onto a number of different bodies throughout his time, making him quite versatile.
Number 7. Bloodscream. Although close to being tied in appearances with Roughhouse since they generally appear together, Bloodscream is slightly more niche than Roughhouse, but only slightly. He is the main partner to Roughhouse, the one he returned to after seemingly appearing as an ally and friend of Wolverine after he and Sister Salvation saved his life, cleansing him of the spore infection he'd received thanks to Geist's experimentation on him in Tierra Verde. Bloodscream, however, never had such a redemption arc. He possesses vampiric abilities which are tied to mysticism, having been cursed by Dagu, a healer who cast an eldritch spell on him while he was on the brink of death. Instead of bringing him back to life, the spell actually caused him to remain trapped between the state of life and death. He became an immortal creature who fed on the life force energy of others through touch. Bloodscream and Roughhouse would become partners and would be employed by multiple different criminal organizations and bosses, often being pitted against Wolverine. Number 6. Dirtnap. Dirtnap is a weird character, but one who kind of has a beautiful story. Dirtnap originally appeared as one of Genesis's Dark Riders, Tyler Dayspring's Genesis, just to be clear. Dirtnap was a mutant who had an ability where he could absorb beings into himself, thereby adopting their form. However, you would know it was Dirtnap because of a red smiley face that would often appear somewhere on him, usually on his clothes or, on his body while in that form. While fleeing from Wolverine, however, who he'd been going up against at the behest of of Genesis to try and capture, he absorbed a rat and kind of became stuck or like otherwise just preferred this form, keeping it. Dirt Nap would later on actually end up joining the X-Men, befriending Generation X, and even sacrifice his own life to protect them. However, we are now in the time of Mutant Resurrection, and more recently in the 2022 series of Marauders in issue number 6, Dirt Nap was actually spotted spying on Lockheed, who was in turn spying on villain Brimstone Love's Theater of Pain. When Dirt Nap had turned good, his smiley face had actually changed to yellow, but when we recently spotted him, his smiley was back to red. So what does that mean? Seems like he's evil again. Number 5, the Red Right Hand. The Red Right Hand was an organization that was brought together by one thing each member shared in common: their hatred of Wolverine. This is because in some way, as each member saw it, Wolverine was to blame for some great misfortune that had befallen them. The Red Right Hand, however, acknowledged that Wolverine was unkillable, basically thanks to his healing factor, so they came up with a better plan in regards of how to best deal with him. Their plan was to send his soul to hell for all of eternity, trapping him there. The Red Right Hand allied themselves with Daken and Mystique to enact their plan. However, Mystique would later turn on them when she found out all the details that their plan entailed, and thought even for her it was pretty awful. In the end, although they didn't trap Wolverine's soul in hell for all of eternity, their plan did succeed. And even worse, they were left with their final say, as they took their own lives rather than surrender to Wolverine or allow him to get revenge by killing them. Number 4, the Mongrels. The Mongrels were a team assembled by the Red Right Hand to seemingly take out Wolverine. They were brought together by and trained by none other than Daken, the son of Wolverine, who now goes by the name given to him by his adoptive parents, Akihiro. Daken trained the Mongrels, but never really expected them to succeed in defeating Wolverine. This is because it was all part of the Red Right Hand's master plan that they lose, or well, win or lose against Wolverine, that the Red Right Hand would win as a result. Because the Mongrels were actually a team made up exclusively of Wolverine's kids. These were the kids that Wolverine didn't know about or that he forgot due to his memories in general being kinda like a mess. Kinda because of his healing factor and such. Only after Wolverine defeated them, killing them, did he learn the truth about each and every member of that team.
Number 3, Titano. Maybe it's just me, but I noticed a lot of villains from DC Comics happen to be apes. I read a lot of comics, it's kind of part of this job, but I have never fully understood why DC specifically has a majority of ape-based supervillains. Titano, though, is one of the more interesting ones. As a chimpanzee in a space program, he got bombarded with cosmic radiation that made him grow to an absolutely ridiculous size, go rampaging in Metropolis, and for some reason, he can now shoot beams of green kryptonite radiation out of his eyes. It's a perfect ability to use against Superman, which is crazy how that works. I don't know. The kicker for me though is how Superman defeats Titano by throwing him back in time to let the dinosaurs just deal with this massive ape. Number 2, Mr. Z, or Mr. Z, whichever you prefer. Now I'd be lying if I said the concept for Mr. Z wasn't at least somewhat cool. His whole shtick is being immortal and traveling through time to trap famous people throughout history in a crystal that sits on top of his walking cane. Now Superman, being one of the most popular and important heroes, obviously meant there was going to be at least an attempt to get inside that crystal. Unfortunately for Mr. Z, Superman's Kryptonian heritage just means that he is invulnerable to the crystal. Not only invulnerable to it, but he can overload the crystal, destroying it and releasing all those trapped inside. Geez, I wonder why DC started struggling to make Superman's stories interesting. I don't know, maybe it's because he can just do whatever he wants. As for Mr. Z, he would face Superman twice more, once back in 1943 and again when the pair got stranded on an island and Superman got rescued, but Mr. Z was literally just left there to starve. How heroic, Superman, how heroic. And in at number 1 is Blue Matt. Here's how obscure Blue Matt is. On both of the wikis I checked out for this character, there was basically zero information. Matt appeared only in World's Finest Superman and Batman number 312 and 313 in 1985 as a member of the villainous group known as The Network. They arrive on the scene and instantly start explaining their powers while they start attacking people, which is an interesting way to go about it, but there you go. Other members can control sound waves, electrocute people, disintegrate people, all that fun villain stuff, but Blue Matt, he goes invisible. And he can turn other things invisible, like when he turned a wall invisible that Batman just runs right into when he's trying to attack Blue Matt. Blue Matt also seems to be the most shy one in the group as he keeps umming and ahhing whenever he talks, which is honestly kind of adorable, I can't lie.
Number 10. General Koi. General Koi is the criminal uncle of Jean Koi Man, aka mutant hero and New Mutants and former X-Men member Karma. He was pitted against Wolverine under the guise of Patch in Madripoor as a result of Logan allying himself with Koi's rival, the still criminal but more respectable Tiger. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. You're not gonna want to miss it. Number 9. Romulus. Romulus is an often forgotten villain, although some of you may occasionally remember that he exists. He claimed to be super old and to have originated from a lupine tribe who were descended from dogs or wolves as opposed to apes. He's also claimed to have been a Roman emperor, but it's more than likely that neither are true, since both claims were tied to his connection to the lupines, which he later stated, never existed but were a lie he told to distract Wolverine. This pretty much sums up most of what Romulus was presented as. A greater than life villain with all these powers and motives to destroy Wolverine and ties to the foundation of Weapon X, but without any real foundation from him to work from, as many of his loose ends ended up kind of like dropped and not really going anywhere. Number 8. Roughhouse. Roughhouse is definitely a lesser known villain, though maybe one of the more well known of the obscure villains on this list. I love his story with Wolverine. Although he starts out as a villain and a brute, he later kind of becomes Wolverine's ally after he was sold off by General Koi to be used for experimentation, which is pretty messed up. Even Wolverine felt bad for this guy, despite being his rival and him being an enemy to him on Madripoor. Wolverine decided to go after him and as such became embroiled in a major political conflict in Tierra Verde. Not to be confused with Terra Verde, a different republic that also exists in Marvel Comics. Yeah, I know. That's a lot. I just realized that myself and I was like, wait, these are two different places. Despite Roughhouse saving Wolverine though and becoming temporary allies, Roughhouse would go back to being a straight up villain of Logan later on.
Number 7. Master Jailer. Master Jailer became a character in a time when DC was struggling to find stories for the Man of Steel. It's kind of hard when you have a character that can pretty much do anything he wants to. So for Carl Draper, he made a fortune creating foolproof containment units for maximum security prisons. He started to become a villain, however, when he decided to create a containment unit for the strongest superhero on Earth, Superman. Didn't really go too well for him though. But his real power emerged when, thanks to that Manchester Black guy, Master Jailer learned Superman's true identity. In the newer continuity, this guy only lasted a real-world month after he joined the Suicide Squad and used his abilities to contain an explosion, which ended his life. Number 6. Silver Banshee. Siobhan McDougal comes from an old Irish family whose firstborn members are cursed with the powers of these Silver Banshees. When her father passed away and she was next in line, her uncle and brother opposed her, not wanting a woman to lead the clan, which kinda sucks. While performing the ritual without her uncle's consent, her brother interrupted it, causing her to be sent to the Netherverse for centuries. Eventually, the Crone brought her back and bestowed the powers of the Silver Banshee on her so that she could exact her revenge. Now, she first appeared in Metropolis when Superman was a confident little tyke in 1987, and she actually nearly took him down permanently with her voice-based abilities, which a lot of people on this list can't say for themselves. One of her best moves was that if she knew someone's name, she could actually take their life in one fell mouth movement, which she used against Superman after learning his true Kryptonian name, although it just heavily stunned him. Again, he's one tough son of a gun. Number 5. Hobby Robber. If I ever become a villain, I really hope I have an extremely specific MO like Hobby Robber. Now, in case you didn't connect the dots, Hobby Robber, Lucius Spruce, has a thing for stealing people's hobby-related items, which is honestly so underrated in terms of how absolutely annoying that would be. Like, could you imagine being a painter or someone who makes model airplanes or something like that, and he just keeps stealing your paintbrushes or like your tools? It would drive me up the wall. For Superman, the Hobby Robber decided to set himself to stealing from Clark Kent's clock collection. You didn't know Clark Kent had a clock collection? Well, you're not alone, because I think he has only ever had it the one time Hobby Robber appeared back in Action Comics number 73 in 1944. Number 4. The Dummy. While the villain known as the Dummy was technically a vigilante villain, he has gone up against the Man of Steel himself, although extremely unsuccessfully, which shouldn't be surprising as the Dummy is either a very small man or a wooden ventriloquist dummy brought to life, who wields a walking stick that can fire a force beam and is really smart, which I feel like is untrue given the fact that that he has tried to take on the Man of Steel while being 3'1". But hey, he had the courage to try his best, which is still something, so I can, The dummy first appeared in Leading Comics #1 in December 1941, and the best thing about this character is the fact that we actually don't know if he is or isn't an actual ventriloquist dummy. Number 3, Menagerie. The Menagerie is likely a more recent evil team, showing up for the first time in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 1 in April of 2014, when they tried to steal valuable decorated eggs from an antique store and were pretty easily defeated. So like, from the get-go, the impressive feats are on the lower side of the list, if you know what I'm saying. In fact, I'd say the most famous thing they've done is when they disintegrated Spider-Man's spider suit, making him have to create web underwear for himself. And it's kind of the underwear that is remembered here, not the menagerie. The animal-themed criminal team was created by White Rabbit, and its members included Hippo, Ox, Skyne, who did the spider suit disintegrating, Squid, Swarm, and, wait for it, Panda Mania. Nice. The Menagerie also is known for trying to rob a club where Nadia Van Dyne was celebrating her birthday with numerous other heroes, which, as you can imagine, it didn't go too well for them. Number 2, Death Throes. Remember how the headmen all came together based on their head-related powers? Well, I'll do you one better. How about the Death Throes, whose powers and names all have something to do with commonly throwing stuff? The ringleader, threw together teammates Bombshell, Knick-Knack, Oddball, Tenpin, and Throwdown into a group that works really well together, juggling their weapons between each other and doing battle with characters like Captain America, Crossfire, Hawkeye, and even Loki of all people, who stopped the group from robbing the big top casino in Las Vegas. The Marvel Wiki even lists their origins as quote-unquote joint effort to perform criminal and mercenary acts while using juggling expertise. I honestly kinda had a hoot putting together this point, as I can't believe this group of villains even exists. And lastly, at number 1 is Horticulture. Okay, of all the teams on this list, I think the Horticulture are my favorite. For starters, they look so cool. But then, you find out it's a bunch of older women between the ages of 64 to 81 who are all expert botanists and want to bring Earth back to its more pristine time when it had about 7 billion less people on it. I just love how they use their regular names, and the names just kinda suit their age and interest in plants. I don't know how, but they kinda just do. Augusta Bromes, Lily Lamus, Edith Scutch, and Opal Vetiver. Gosh. But yes, that's right, these ladies want to basically exterminate most of the Earth's human population and bring plants back to the forefront, specifically flowers. This goal brings them into conflict with the X-Men in 2019's X-Men number 3. Beyond biological modifications believed to have been made to themselves, the women of Horticulture are experts at manipulating the environment to suit their extinction agenda, and they're also computer programmers, selling software to Orcus to monitor Krakoan gateways. But seriously, look at them. They're just awesome.